Six-time Pro Bowler, former Bengal and Patriot Chad Johnson comes on the set. Chad has picked on me on Twitter, and then he said nice things about me on Twitter.
He did?
So our relationship is evolving.
It is.
So now I got to tell the story.
As it should.
As it should be. So you played at Oregon State. It was a very good team. It was Dennis Erickson, and you went to a bowl game against Notre Dame.
Fiesta Bowl.
Because you were there 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Dennis Erickson in the fall. And I've known Dennis forever. And Dennis said, we got this kid, he said, and I got a piece of video. He said, we got this kid, this Chad Johnson kid. He's like, he's going to go into the NFL. So, and I'm like, okay. And then you could really jump. You had a couple of plays in spring and fall football. You could really jump. So anyway, you played Notre Dame. And I'm on the field for that. I'm covering it for my NBC affiliate, right? And I've never done this in my life. I don't even know if it's ethical. But I'm on the sidelines, and Notre Dame is favored. And I'm on and cell phone. It was back when you had those big cell phones. They were like the size of like a
the Motorola's.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I think I drove it to the game, and then I used it later. And I called a friend of mine in Las Vegas, and I watched Oregon State come out of the tunnel, and I watched Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was a favorite. And Oregon State was so athletic. And I looked at them like, there's like 8 NFL guys on this team. TJ, Nick Barnett, Weathersby, you, even the running back wasn't an NFL guy.
Ken Simonton.
But he was a really good player.
Yeah, very good.
And I called the buddy and I said, how much money do you have? And I said, how much money do you have on you? And he said, $600. I said, Oregon State is going to pulverize Notre Dame. Do you remember this game?
Yeah, very good game. I never forget.
You had a great game.
Very good game. I mean, I only spent 4 months in college, so I have no choice but to remember that one memorable moment. But it was very enjoyable, very enjoyable. And I don't know what happened to everybody you just named. The only person I keep in touch with is TJ, and I know Coach Erickson is at Utah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. TJ's a good dude.
Yeah, I love him.
Great
I
dude.
love him.
Okay, so let me ask you about Zeke being penalized, and you were a guy. Oh, I'm going to go kind of the Odell Beckham thing. So, listen, when you're 25 years old and you're making a lot of money and you're a star and generally the receiver's the best athlete on the team and you're going crazy and you got markers and you're doing funny stuff, do you look back at that now and do you look at Odell and say, ooh, I shouldn't have done that? Or are you like, hey, man, that's who I am?
You know, I look back at it and it was more so fun. It was more entertainment for the game. You know, on your position, in your position and in the position you've been in for those many years, you scrutinized me for some of the things that I did.
Yeah.
But even looking back on it now, it was just all in fun. It was never malicious.
Right.
It never hurt anybody.
No, it was always fun with you.
But therefore, you know, I don't regret it. And I think if I had the opportunity, I would probably do it again because that's what the game of football is about. It's about having fun and entertaining.
You know, in fairness to Beckham and you, is that you are a household name and your numbers were good, but part of this is branding.
Right.
And the NFL can cut you.
Yeah.
And the NFL, unlike the NBA, controls you.
Right.
Did you ever feel in the moment, man, this is how I express myself?
You know what, the funny thing about it is I never thought that far ahead. I didn't think about the marketing, branding aspect of it, in which I was doing already and had no idea, but I was more so just having fun and playing the game. The way I played in the NFL is the same way I played in Liberty City when I was a little kid playing Pop Warner. It's the same way I played at Miami Beach Senior High when I was in high school. So the fact of the matter is, once I got to the NFL and you paid me millions of dollars, I just didn't change that style of play.
Yeah.
That's it. It just remained the same. There's a certain way I'm assuming that they felt I should have been, and I chose not to conform to that.
When you watch, Antonio Brown special, Odell Beckham, what is it? Just simply speed? Like when you watch Beckham, what do you see?
With Antonio, there are 2 receivers in this NFL, right? There's Antonio Brown and there's Odell Beckham. And
Are they similar?
In their skill set. It's their skill set that differs from everyone else. You can take Antonio Brown and you can take Odell Beckham and put them on any team and give them any offensive coordinator, line them up anywhere on the field, and they can get open for you against any defense. There's nothing you can do because of their skill set. It's not that they're just these enormous, huge physical specimens, but there's a certain skill set that they have and a knack and sauce for the game that they can't be stopped.
Well, when you played in the game, it was more vertical. It's increasingly more of a bubble screen league.
Yeah.
Get Chad the ball fast.
Right.
You got a little bit of that at the tail end of your career, but initially when you went to high school, college, you were a deep threat.
Right.
Like, do you like the game now as a receiver? Like to you, would you fit as well today?
You know what? I like the game when I played. You know, defensively, I think offensively, the receivers and the offense is at an advantage, being that the rules are so crazy where defensive backs really can't touch you. Safeties are scared to hit you. And the era I played in, you had to think twice about going across the middle. You had to look left. You had to keep your head on the swivel. And I enjoyed that era of football more because defensive backs, they're allowed to put their hands on you. They can touch you. They can choke you at the line of scrimmage and actually just play football.
Yeah.
And today the game is somewhat watered down.
It's almost Canadian.
Yeah.
It looks
oh my God.
It looks a little.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a little Canadian football. It's a little 7-on-7 at times.
Yeah, basically.
When you look at Dak, like I still don't think he has a great arm. He's not big. Mm-hmm. Like what always jumps out to me is sort of his maturity. Mm-hmm. Like he never implodes.
Right.
Like Jared Goff implodes. Carson Wentz implodes. Paxton Lynch implodes.
Right.
Even Jameis now sometimes implodes. Mm-hmm. Russell Wilson can implode. Dak doesn't implode.
But he hasn't had the opportunity or the need to implode. They've only lost 2 games. He's been efficient basically all year. Of course, he had turnovers now to this point towards the tail end of the season. But there's really no reason for him to implode. They've been doing so well.
How much credit do you give his offensive line?
They get all the credit. Let's say you take Zeke and take him out of and from in front of that offensive line. Does he get the same yards on any other team?
No
Let's say he's with the Rams.
Oh, God, no.
It's different. The offensive line is everything for the Dallas Cowboys. Everything.
When it's interesting. I want to shift gears. New England has been willing to take chances on people. Mm-hmm. Michael Floyd's a terrific young player. I know somebody who knows him well. Good work ethic. Mm-hmm. He's had his baggage.
Yeah.
When you went to New England toward the end of your career, it's very difficult to get Tom Brady's trust because Tom's got his system.
Yeah.
If you could tell Michael Floyd anything about Brady in New England, what would it be?
You know what? Just be consistent. That's it. That's the one way to get any quarterback trust is being consistent. Just being consistency. I mean, I think of myself and Carson. And how do I get Carson Palmer's trust? It's just being consistent over time, year and year, and year and after year. And my time with Tom was short-lived, but we weren't able to build that chemistry, let alone that trust. And it'll be nice. He'll be a nice fit.
Is it a more complicated system?
No, it's not a complicated system. It's a funny thing when people always say the New England offense is complicated. Offenses in the NFL are all the same. The only thing that changes from team to team is the verbiage on how it's called. There are only 9 routes. You have a hitch, you got a slant, you got a quick out, you got an out, you got a curl, a dig, a post. That's it. Nothing changes. It's just the way it's called. And learning the way the verbiage is called on that team within their scheme is all you have to learn. Nothing else changes from team to team.
Was Belichick tougher? Did he demand more?
You know what? Yeah. It ain't really Belichick. It's what Tom demanded. It's what the veteran demanded. Belichick didn't even have to say anything because once you walked in, when you walk in that atmosphere, you already know. You feel it. You feel it. That culture is like
serious.
Yes. It's like I always use the example of remember Full Metal Jacket? Remember the beginning of Full Metal Jacket?
Hell yes.
That's what it's like walking in there, man. And I don't think, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing because there's a reason why they're so successful, the way that ship is run.
So when you walked in there, you could sense as a player, I got to button it up.
Right away. And nobody even has to tell you. You sense it like, okay, I see what time it is.
We get down to the end of a season, and a lot of times it gets colder, it's windier, and the vertical passing game. Receivers a lot of times become less crucial this point forward.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the perimeter matchups don't matter. Go back to your career. Who was the toughest corner you faced in your entire career? And you played for, 12 years, 10 years?
Let me say the toughest I would say would probably be out of Dale Carter. Dale Carter was one of the best athletes in league history. Yeah, Dale Carter and Deion Sanders. I had opportunity to see Deion even on the back end of his career, and he was still like, oh wow.
So you were a better athlete than 99% of guys. You were the best athlete in high school. You were the best athlete in college.
Actually, I was a late bloomer. I wasn't the best athlete in high school. I was a late bloomer, and honestly, I wasn't the best athlete at Oregon State.
Who was?
Honestly. Oh, man, maybe Ken Simonton. TJ was better than me.
And so in the NFL, you actually were your best athlete ever.
Yeah, even then, maybe I did certain things well once I was in the NFL. I did certain things well, so I wouldn't even think I was the best athlete during my tenure at the Bengals. There were just things that I did extremely well. I found whatever that one niche was, and I made sure I was great at it.
Yeah. When you go in, it's funny. I'm watching the Bengals and I'm watching the Steelers, and it's just cats and dogs living together. So and Pittsburgh's dominated in the recent years, has dominated that series. I think they're in the Bengals' head.
Right.
I just think they're in the Bengals' head. Go back to the Steeler games. Mm-hmm. Were they different as a Bengal?
They were the same back then. It's what Coach Lewis used to call a 2-10 strap game. It was extremely physical. And the team that made the fewest mistakes back then
always won.
Won. Always. Because you knew each other so well. You had maybe 3 or 4 different plays that you threw in, but you ran the same stuff you ran the last time. You just you just dressed it up a little different, And there was maybe a wrinkle or two that maybe made the difference in the game, but whoever made the fewest mistakes really won.
You played in a division with Baltimore and Pittsburgh. You faced Troy Polamalu
and Ed Reed, Ray Lewis. It was ridiculous. And actually, we didn't have all those rules back then. They didn't have all those rules. Man, I'm thinking of Ed Reed and Troy and Ray Lewis trying to knock my head off every week.
Who popped you? Was there one hit in your life?
Yeah, Brian Russell. Brian Russell, the safety that played with, I think he played with Seattle, but he was with Cleveland at the time, and he knocked me out cold. And I would never forget that. Never.
Well, how do you remember it?
The video played back.
And that's the only way?
Yeah, that's the only way I remember.
Out.
I mean, out cold, like sleep.
You ever watch a boxing match and it looks like a guy goes out on his feet and he falls to the... Is that what it's like?
Yeah.
Do you remember
definitely.
Second before the play?
I remember trying to reach for a ball that it had no business going for because it was too high. And I was still trying to get it. And then it was we were winning and I was still in the game. It was like 2 minutes to go.
You still played?
And then after that, you left the game.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice.
Do you remember going to the sidelines?
No, I remember the interview in the locker room when the first thing I said, I probably nodded to my senses, but I looked at Hugh, and the first thing I asked Hugh Jackson, who was my receiver coach at the time, how did I do against Lee Bodden? That's the first thing I want to know. How did I do in the individual matchup in that game?
Your helmet came off with that hit.
Fly. I had to get stitches, had a huge gash.
Did it affect you later?
No.
How did the next week, how did it not affect you?
It didn't at all.
You don't think about it?
No, I don't. I kept going right back across the middle. And then having and Ray Lewis, who was responsible for maybe 2 or 3 of my concussions, same thing with him. I didn't care. I just kept running into him until I won.